Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back with a warm-up race that we had for an FIA Red Bull Ring race in Group 3 between myself and Calster. So this was Will versus Pad, and this was a really good fun race, and the reason why I picked this race is because we're going to analyse Calster's driving style for the Pad, and we're going to try and, as we watch the race, and commentate on it as well, because it was a really entertaining race. It's really good to watch his style, because when we're behind him, we were really close to him all the way through the race. So when we're on our cockpit view, you're going to be able to see his car behaviour and how smooth he is, and we're going to run on board with all the information there, his braking inputs, his accelerating inputs and his steering inputs on the control pad, just so you can see why he is so fast, and why the argument about people say that the pad can just be as fast. You know, it is all down to individual skill at the end of the day. Calster is very fast on the pad, and he's just got a knack for controlling his throttle response. I think the main area where he's really picked it up on is the throttle response. If you look at on the accelerator, when he doesn't just go flat to like maximum throttle, he's really good at controlling the throttle between 50 and then at about 80%. If he feels he can't put 100% throttle down, he's really good at just like hovering it just short of the 100%. You see there, just a little, like 85, 90, even 95% throttle before he puts 100% throttle down. It's really interesting to watch, because in some areas I don't think that's possible to do on the steering wheel, and I don't know whether that's because I don't know how the throttle works compared on a control pad to a steering wheel. But on a steering wheel, when you're using pedals on the steering wheel, it is really hard to do the pedal response as accurately as some other games. I think it's because it's not linear, the actual throttle. It doesn't actually match exactly what input you're putting in, so it's quite hard. Now, I don't know if that's the case for the control pad, but what you will see is he's really good. Let's just run on board with myself now, as we're trying to put Calster under a lot of pressure in this race, and you'll see how smooth he is, even into the corners. Now, if you didn't know that Calster was on a pad, you would not really, I don't think you'd be able to tell that he was actually on it. The only clue you get sometimes is it looks slightly like a jolting effect on the steering every now and then. It's only rarely though. Whereas if you're behind somewhere like Lightning, it is so smooth because you can tell he's on a wheel. But even with Calster, you can see like there's the odd occasion with the oversteer. You can see because it's so quick at catching oversteer. That's how I can tell that he's on the pad, obviously. And I have asked Calster what control method he uses. Obviously, he uses the R2 to accelerate, the L2 to brake, and square and X to control the gears. So that's how he does it. It's interesting to hear his way of doing it. I actually, when I used to play on the control pad, I did R2 and L2 the same as he does on games like Drive Club. But I used triangle to upshift and square to downshift. That was just my way of doing it. I found that comfortable for me. He obviously does it a different way of square and X. But look how smooth he is through the corners. And one thing you will see is, one thing I didn't ask Calster was what view he uses. Whether he uses the bumper camera, I presume it's the bumper or the bonnet camera. I don't think he uses chase camera, but he is so accurate at putting the car where he wants it into the apex of the corners, as we're trying to put a lot of pressure on. You can see now from the replay camera, if you were watching these two cars, you would not know that one of them was probably driven by a control pad user on GT Sport. And this is why, in my opinion now, I think obviously in the past M. Thomas was pretty much one of the better pad players out there, but I think in Group 1 still that is the case. M. Thomas is on another league on Group 1 cars. However, in Group 3 and Group 2, I 100% feel that in Group 3 and Group 4, I think that Calster is a step ahead of M. Thomas now on the control pad, in my personal opinion. I think that he's pushing that control pad really. He seems to be improving every couple of weeks. He seems to be getting faster and faster, and he's definitely, you know, considering he's driving one of the hardest cars to control, the Lamborghini, obviously it is a little bit better now since one of the buffs that it had with the patch. I think with one of the patches we had, it slightly altered some of the handling of MR cars. Now it is slightly better, but it's still a tricky car to drive. And another thing that's happened is, I think the control pad, a lot of people have reported in my videos over the last few updates that the control pad seems to be getting easier to control. So maybe they're trying to make it a little bit more consistent in the inputs that you're putting in, but you can really tell that whatever's happening, Calster is really getting to grips with it. You can just see how smooth he is. Every corner, he's hitting the apexes pretty much perfect. Again, we're going to ride on board and look at the trail brake. One thing you will notice as well is Calster is trail braking into these corners with a control pad very nicely, and that is one thing that's probably quite hard to do on a control pad. Now, obviously, it is down to practice and getting used to it and just getting used to the amount of pressure you need to do. But look into this braking zone. It's maximum braking, then as he goes into the apex of the corner, gradual trail braking into it. Again, you'll see the same effect going into turn 2 now. He's going to trail brake into this corner, and then watch also the throttle response as he's coming off the trail braking as well, how he gradually will input the throttle into the inputs. As you see again, trail braking into corner, then so 30%, 40, 50%, then he's feathering it around 95% throttle as he comes out the corner, and that is, it seems to be working for him. Now that I don't think that's as easy to do on the steering wheel, to be brutally honest. I think that's where it's really tricky, because anyone who's got a steering wheel will tell you on the accelerator it is really hard to get your throttle to around 90 to 95%. However, Calster's definitely got some knack of getting 95% throttle as he's coming out the corner, or when he feels the car's going a little bit loose, and then getting back onto maximum throttle. He might not even know he's doing it. It might just be literally something that he's doing without even thinking of. As you can see again through the corner, again there, you could see it as he's on the curb. He's not putting the full power on that car down. It's just keeping the car really balanced and exactly how he wants it to be driving over the curbs and stuff. As again we run back on board with ourselves, trying to put Calster under pressure. And this race was really fun all the way to the end. Great battle between myself and Calster. This was, I think, the race before. I think this was the final race before we actually went into the in the night time. This was in the day, a bit earlier in the day. This was after he beat Igor Fraga. He beat Igor Fraga the night before, and then we had this race in the daytime. As you can see, he loses a bit of traction there. Maybe got a bit aggressive on the throttle. We're going to look down the outside now and try and make a move down the right hand side and try and outbrake him. However, the speed of that Lamborghini, we're going to have to tuck back in. You can see can't really go for that, and he's braked really late as well. You can see he's actually braked try and stop me going up the inside, and he's actually caused himself a bit of an issue there on the left hand side. I'm now going to have to run down the right hand side. I'm actually in the lead now. However, he's got the inside line into this corner, which is where you want to be on the left, the two left hand corners at Red Bull Ring. I tried to do the undercut there to get back underneath, but the Porsche just doesn't have the outright acceleration to make that move on the Lamborghini. So again, look at his way, the way he's inputting the car and how stable that Lamborghini. I can tell you that Lamborghini is not an easy car to drive. It is an enjoyable car to drive once you get the hang of it, but it does take a lot of practice. And to be honest, he has put a lot of practice into the Lamborghini recently. However, you know, to be able to drive that car the way he is doing at the Red Bull Ring here now shows you just how competitive the control pad can be. You get so many questions. I think every week I get a question about whether, when I'm streaming, about whether the control pad is competitive on GT Sport, and I say it a lot, pretty much every time. The control pad is 100% competitive. A lot of it is down to individual skill. It is probably a little bit trickier to get used to the pad. However, if you put the time and the effort in, like Calster will tell you, I'm sure he'll comment in the comment section, that if you put the time in, Calster wasn't the fastest person 6 months ago on the control pad, but his improvement has really come along on the game, and he's starting to get faster and faster and faster. And I think a lot of it is probably, a lot of people try and use assists on the pad as well, and I think the best thing you can do is take them off and just get used to it. No traction control, just use the ABS on default. Take away, some people still use, I still see today that a lot of people use counter steer assist, and I think that actually hinders you slightly. I know in FIA they ban it, and I think that's where a lot of people cause themselves issues. We have a massive moment there, pushing too hard on the gravel, nearly losing the rear of the car, but just about saving it. You can see the tyres obviously got a little bit of dirt on them there, as again going through that really fast left hand corner, got a little bit loose, but we just about managed to stay in the slipstream with Calster in front of us. But yeah, with regards to the assists on the game, I definitely think, just like with the wheel, when I advise people with the steering wheel, I think the best way to go about it is just making it as hard as possible pretty much right from the start, and dealing with how hard it is with no assists on the traction controller, for example. You always need, pretty much every car you're going to use default ABS. It is the fastest way to play the game. You speak to any of the top drivers like Lightning, Igor Fraga, or anyone that's, you know, playing the game, they'll all use ABS on default. It's the preferred way. There are the odd car like the go-kart where you actually turn ABS off, that it does benefit you, but most cars, that's how you run it. But again, look at what really amazed me when I was looking back on this was his throttle inputs. Again, you could see it there, how he can progressively go through the throttle ranges with control pad. Now that is obviously, he's very good with the trigger finger and getting it very, very comfortable at putting the 50 to 60 to 70 and then 80, and then sometimes flickering it around 95%. It's as if he's it sometimes looks like he's tapping it a bit. It's kind of what I used to do on when on the old games when you didn't have R2 and L2 and you used to use X to accelerate. You kind of used to have to tap it sometimes coming out of the corners. It's as if he's doing that, but he's doing it with the throttle and being. It's really working for him, as you can see. Again, just there, you could just see that little bit of 90, 95, and again there you can see it. It's flickering away, and then he's got the maximum throttle coming out of the corner once he's securely come out. As he had a bit of a moment on the curb, he then put about 95% throttle in again. Now this is something I doubt he even knows that he's doing a lot of this, but it's really interesting to see that he's doing that, and he's clearly gaining some massive amount of speed from doing that. So we both go in the pit lane together now. I was about, I think about 6 tenths of a second, 7 tenths of a second behind him as we go into the pits on lap 7. We're both doing the shorter stint on the first stint to try and give ourselves the longer stint at the end, because your fuel goes down. As I've said this hundreds of times in videos before, the lighter your car is, the longer the tyres will last. So the better your car will be to drive towards the lower end of the fuel. Obviously, that's why most people use going on the undercut and do the longer stint on the second stint. But look at that out as we come out of the pits. We lose out again. This is something that happened in the FIA race. The Porsche doesn't go down to first gear, isn't on the pit exit. It goes into second gear when it really bogs down and you lose a lot of time in acceleration. But fortunately for us, we're very close to staying in that slipstream. You can see the speed out of the corner from that Lamborghini. That Lamborghini was so strong coming out of that hairpin, mainly because of the straight line acceleration that the Lamborghini does have. It really is one of the fastest cars in the game. Puff of smoke from the brakes, that is, I think that's a replay glitch. That doesn't actually happen in the race. It didn't actually happen when we were streaming. It's just a glitch on the replays that seems to happen where a puff of smoke comes up in the braking zone sometimes. I don't know why it does it, but it does it for some reason. Not sure why. As again, Calster pushing really hard, and look how accurate, again, through the corners, within inches of going onto the grass. And this is something we pointed out from watching TRR Lightning, and also showed you when I was from my own view and how close I was getting to the grass. A lot of people wonder why they're slower around the track compared to some other drivers, and a lot of it is because of how much of the track you're using. Like going into the corner, he was about an inch, if that, away from the grass on his left-hand tyre before he chucked it into the corner. And that's the type of thing you really need to do, is swing the car from the left to the right, getting it in, decreasing the angle that you have to take through the corner, and maximising the exit speed from that corner. As again, we run back on board with Calster. Now it really is important to look at the steering inputs, the little red dot above the speedo where it's going up, and you will see how gradual he can put them steering inputs in, and it's so smooth. There is only the odd time you can see that he's probably on a control pad. The majority of it, 90%, 95% of the inputs on that steering input, you would think that he was on a wheel. It's that smooth. And it'd be interesting to compare his inputs against another control pad user that's maybe not quite so fast, to see how smooth he is in comparison to someone else. Maybe we can do that in another video in the future and just see if that is where he's gaining the time. Is it his throttle inputs? Is it the braking? I think it's just a mixture of all of them together that's creating a very competitive control pad user. As you can see now in the mirror, he's actually started to pull away a bit from me there. I think he's nearly breaking the slipstream as he goes through that sector on a purple sector. Obviously on a good lap on this lap. We're going to stay on board right to the end of this lap as we go through the two right hand corners, and these are probably very tricky corners on the control pad, because it's so easy to run wide and get loose on the rear as you go through there, and lose the rear end as you chuck it. And again on the curbs, very stable. You can see again as he goes over the curb, he's just reducing that throttle down slightly, just as a kind of a safety barrier in case the rear is going to lose control. As we now go on back on board with myself, going through the right hand corner and just trying to push hard. Now this is where we were starting to lose the slipstream a bit, but I know with the Lamborghini and the Porsche has the better tyres towards the end of the stint. However, if you let the Lamborghini pull away on the straights, it's going to be very hard to get back in the slipstream in the Lamborghini, because that Lamborghini is so fast down the straights. I wanted to do this video as well, mainly because we did the video on Igor Fraga about how he was doing stuff with through the gears and stuff. When I watch Calster, it doesn't look like he's as aggressive as drivers like that on the gears. It might be possibly because he's on the control pad, so when you're on the control pad, it's probably is a bit dangerous to be downshifting so aggressively, because it's quite, if the rear goes, it's a little bit tricky to catch it. Maybe that could be one reason, but it just could be his driving style's a little bit more closer to mine in terms of the gears that he's using. Obviously, the Lamborghini has different gearing, so it's quite hard to tell anyway. But it doesn't seem to be as aggressive as the likes of Lightning and Igor Fraga. But this is something that I want to do through a number of drivers on the game, and I hope you enjoy it as we watch, obviously, myself chasing Calster now. And we obviously wanted to keep both views in because it was quite an entertaining race as we battle for the win in this. It was just a warm-up race, but I think it was quite intense when we were streaming it. It was a really good fun race to be involved with. As you see, we go over the line there on quite a fast lap at 20. I think that was a 28.3 on the second lap on the tyre, so the potential was there. The first lap after the pits, obviously never really that strong, as we're now pushing hard down the straights into turn 2 again. And you can see, looking at the gap, he looks like he's actually got at this point about a 1.3 second lead, 1.2 second lead. But I really started trying to concentrate and seeing if I could get back in the slipstream at this point. As we really hugged that corner up there, you could see how the Porsche really gripped with that long ratio in first gear and helped it pull away from that corner. But then again on the straight, Calster in that Lamborghini just pulls away, able to use the power of the Lamborghini with them smooth inputs that he's putting in. And like I was saying, yeah, we want to do this type of video where we have a look at the driving styles, have a look at the inputs that they use for a number of drivers on the game. Obviously, there is one individual that I really want to do next, another wheel user, which I'm pretty sure most people will be able to guess. So we're possibly going to look for some footage from Lightning. We've probably got, I think we've got one replay we could use at this track, but I think I'll wait and look for something better to use in terms of analysing Lightning, because in my opinion, there's nothing between TRL Lightning and Igor Fraga. They're both very, pretty much identically paced. I think in some combinations one might be stronger, in the other combinations the other will be stronger. So it'll be really interesting to see, and maybe compare the two styles. If we can get some footage of maybe in the same race, that'd be really interesting. If we could do in the future, if we can get Igor Fraga in and Lightning into a lobby and do a single make race, do qualifying so they're starting to at the front together, and then we can analyse their driving styles with a certain car. That could be something that we could do in the future, just to see why they are both so fast and if they use a very similar tactic. Because in my opinion, it looks like they do from what I've watched of both of them so far, with regards to the downshifting that they do into the corners. However, back on with the control pad user in front of us, and the one area that the control pad users tended to suffer on more than the wheel users before the patch that we just got, because I think the patch that we have just got has weakened the has like lowered the tyre wear that some of the cars are getting. So it's going to be interesting if this is still the case. But in the past, the pad users have always said that the pad tends to use a little bit more tyre life up than the wheel. You do notice it as well. However, Calster was doing a great job in the Lamborghini, which in general is quite aggressive on the tyres anyway, but he's doing a really good job at maintaining speed. This track was not the most aggressive on tyre wear, obviously. The Red Bull Ring, not known for its tyre usage. It's not that aggressive on tyres. It's a bit like Monza. It's not too aggressive, so you're not going to get the most effect of it. However, towards the end of the stint, the Porsche was still going to be a little bit faster, especially in the traction zones and through some of the fast corners. As we're now pushing really aggressive, you can see on the replay camera, this is where we're really getting close to being back in that slipstream now. As you can see, it's just over a second, as we had a back marker in front of us, but luckily for us we had ghosting on for when we approached back markers. You can see there Calster's car ghosting because he must have picked up a penalty on turn 1. Fortunately for both of us, I think in the final FIA race we did, I don't think Calster got a single penalty. I got one on lap 1, which you can see in the video we did, and on the live stream we did pick up one penalty on literally lap 1, turn 1. We got a bit of a strange penalty, but that was it throughout the whole race. So we got away with that one, but it was a very random thing. There is a certain way of doing it. I think we all got the hang of it in the end, of how to make sure you don't pick up the penalty. As obviously in the top splits you have to be pushing as far as you can and as aggressively as you can around the lap to get the most out of the car. As you can see again, sliding through that corner I was there, trying to get into the slipstream with Calster. I was really pushing the Porsche at this point, trying to get everything out of it. Why I know that his tyres are going to start suffering and mine are going to be slightly better, and we've got that extra lap on this second stint to do. So again, we're going to be able to see how Calster deals with that tyre wears. He has a massive moment coming out of that corner, but manages to save it again. Probably using that throttle inputs that we saw earlier in the video. We drive back on board now with Calster on lap 14. So his tyres, you can see his tyres are very aggressively worn now, and he's going to start suffering with that tyre wear. However, again, we'll have a little look at the inputs. As again, coming out that corner, you could see on the throttle, it just dipped down to about 95% again as his rear was going loose, as he's trying to gain traction out of the corner. Let's see if he does it again out of turn 2 as he's getting on the power. We'll watch that input, so it goes up to 50 and a little decrease in power. And again, you can see as he's getting the wheel spin, he's trying to just slowly lift off that power just to try and get rid of the wheel spin and regain the traction, which is really helping him out with this car and getting him some very, very good traction out of that Lamborghini. Again, you can see it trail braking into that corner, and again feathering 50% and then up to 90-95% and then full 100% when the grip's there. He's nearly losing control of the car again. You can see it on the accelerator, the rears are really spinning up, and he's losing a lot of traction out of that Lamborghini. He's starting to suffer with that tyre wear. You can see on the rears, the rear left mainly is starting to fade off with the obviously that rear left is starting to lose all its tyre life now. And the Lamborghini, one thing with the Lamborghini is it's very, very tricky to drive when the tyres do start going. So let's have a little watch now at the smooth inputs. Again, the steering inputs are so smooth for a control pad user, and that really does show you that it is obviously possible to do with a control pad. The control pad can be 100% competitive against wheel users. One thing about it is there are some combinations where the control pad will be very, very strong, and there will be some control combinations where the wheel will be stronger, etc., and or there'll be some that will just be fairly equal. It really does vary. Group 1 in general tends to favour control pad users from experience, as some combinations really do as well. It just tends to highlight some sort of, I wouldn't say an advantage in the pad, but there are some areas of the pad where you seem to get a bit extra grip on acceleration and stuff like that. But it's quite equal overall. I think that Polyphony have clearly done a good job on the game in creating quite an equal game for wheel users and pad. As we go for the dive on the inside, managed to make the move, slide on the exit of the corner. We're both side by side struggling with grip now, going in this final lap now, and I tried to make the move. Can we stick it on this final few corners left? We managed to hold the inside line. Have we got the inside line for the next corner then? Yeah, we've managed to hold on to that position. Calster's going to have to brake and try and undercut and get back on the power, but he's not really going to be able. We have a massive slide coming out of that corner there. I didn't quite notice that actually happened, but we had a big slide there, and we've managed to get into the lead and actually going to take this win. It's only a warm-up race, but it was a really fun race, and we actually managed to make that move on the final lap. So some really fun racing to end the race from the analyst of Calster's driving as well. You can see he decides to do a massive handbrake at the end and spin the car out. You can see I think that was deliberate. It looked like it as he was fishtailing the rear. But an enjoyable race, and it really does show you that, you know, how strong the control pad can be. It can be as strong as pretty much any wheel user, verging on any wheel user. I think there's the likes of Eagle Fragger and TRR Lightning that I think the pad users just are very struggle, you know, really struggle to get anywhere near. The only circumstances where I think the pad users can match the likes of them drivers are in Group 1 at certain combinations, because like I said, Group 1 does have an advantage. But I think it's clear to see from that being so smooth on the control pad, really delicate inputs, and really good throttle control and trail braking into the corners is so important with the control pad. Probably more so with the, I would say the throttle is the most important. Obviously, on the steering wheel, it's very hard to get the throttle because it's non-linear. Now, I'd be really interested to know if it's the same type of non-linear approach with the control pad as well, because it looked like on the control pad that you were able to he was able to control that throttle slightly better than you can with a set of pedals, which is interesting. But obviously your hands have got more dexterity than your feet, so it's just really interesting to see that he was able to drive like that with the dexterity that he had, such smooth driving. And it's clear that if you've got the ability and you know the angles to take into corners, you know the racing lines, you know what the car can do, that it's 100% equal to the wheel. So I hope that answers a lot of people's question. I hope people enjoyed watching Calster with all his inputs on the accelerator, the brake, the steering inputs, etc., and just to see how he does it. If you did like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of these videos, let me know in the comment section. I want to be analysing TRR Lightning's driving. and see if we can pick up anything from his driving with his gear shifting. The way I know for a fact we'll pick it up with TRR Lightning, because I've noticed it before, how he mid shifts corners, down shifts in the middle of the corner sometimes, a lot more than what a lot of other drivers do. So we'll try and analyze that more when we get some footage of him. So hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll see you all very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.